What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing? Get it started in a second. Just give me a... Actually, I don't need a sound check. I I think we're good without a sound check. We'll get started in a second, though. Every single stream I ask, how's the sound? And it's been perfect for the last, however many streams. So I don't think it's necessary. Besides, there's always a little bit of a lag. But we'll get started in a second. Give people a minute to join in. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Might as well. What's going on? Hold on one second. Change the screen. 1 minute. Where is? 1 second. And just make sure all these screens are set up right. Cool. 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 All right, yeah, like I said, we'll get started in a minute. Give everyone a chance to settle in. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Sound is good. Background noise should be good. Few things to touch on during this stream that I think are important. Some current event stuff, and then take questions, AMA, and if any trading opportunities set up based on what I'm looking for. We'll go ahead and fire some. All right. So thank you for tuning in. It is Monday, and it is a holiday week. It's not a whole lot that I would expect, honestly, to come of this week. We have, obviously, Thanksgiving. We have the FOMC meeting minutes. We have unemployment claims, PMI. But it's a holiday week, and I'm kind of anticipating that it is going to be kind of light. Now, this is obviously in the event that there is no development with, specifically for crypto, with DCG, Genesis, and our friend Barry. But anyhow, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. If you're not a subscriber, if you're not a follower, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Haven't been on a stream in a few days. I was under the weather. So my wife had COVID, right? She actually had to take a trip to the hospital for that. Just make sure that everything was going to be all right, because she is obviously 7 months pregnant. So she had it, and the entire time that she had it, I didn't get it. And then I finally got it, but I was testing positive, but didn't have any symptoms. And that's came and went. And then as of the last week, I think it's a combination of the heat being up more in the house, just drying sinuses out, and then also going outside, drying things out more, allowing some kind of, I guess, sickness to latch on. I ended up coming down with either a sinus infection or a cold. I don't know. I rarely go to the doctor, and I try to just tough shit out. But I was pretty exhausted. The market's been very exhausting. And this is, another part of what makes trading or operating within markets so difficult, is that context, environment is always changing. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. And this is a perfect example of a really tumultuous period where there's a ton of uncertainty. So anyway, the first thing I want to address, and then we'll get into some of the charts and the setups that I'm looking at. So obviously I am partners with Phemex. I've been partners with Phemex, and my partner Rager, we've been partners with Phemex now since the beginning. After the whole FTX fiasco, it's completely understandable for everybody to be skeptical of exchanges, myself included. Like I always talk about, when there's any kind of major issue that's taking place, it's market wide, and there's any possibility of contagion, I just go into this routine where I withdraw money. I always take a certain amount of money out of crypto. I talked about this. I end up causing myself unnecessary taxable events. But it's a practice that I consistently do. And then I also take money off of exchanges and only leave the certain amount on that I want to have on to trade with. And the benefit of doing that is, you can be certain only to a degree, right? FTX was a perfect example. And I don't want to just rehash all of this, but FTX, obviously one of the most trusted exchanges in the market. But anyhow, after all this happened, obviously standards should be much higher. Exchanges should release not only liabilities, but proof of reserves. And all exchanges, I think, that said they were going to do that, ended up doing that. Phemex, they created this portal for their users. So if you're someone who used the link below, and the sign up link is below, and if you're a Phemex user, you can access this. So you can access your place in the Merkle tree. You could access the liabilities. You could download all that. You could take a look at their cold wallets. And, I'll even say that doing things like this, it's crypto. It's like they're not audited by like PricewaterhouseCoopers and Big Four accounting firms. So right now it's the best we're going to get. I think that you should still practice safe practices, not to be redundant, but someone put up a post last week, and I think it was Worst Contrarian, and he summed it up the best. He put up this matrices of taking your money off of FTX versus not. What's the worst that can happen when you take money off of an exchange? And people took a ton of money off of exchanges, right? Phemex took a major hit in terms of liquidity that was pulled. Now money is finally coming back after this, but it's understandable. But what's the worst that can happen? You take money off of an exchange because you're uncertain during a time of extreme uncertainty, and what? You miss out on buying like one of the small pops. That's all a mental game, right? That's all a mental trick. You're constantly going to be missing out on moves if you're trading to begin with, and if you're an investor, like you're just used to that by now. So you have to be willing to pass that up, right? That opportunity cost of like missing out on buying the bottom, if it means that you're going to, again, protect yourself, right? To sort of sit things out and wait for, wait for the quote unquote other shoe to drop potentially, right? So that's understandable versus being like, you know what? I don't think anything's going to happen. I'm going to stay on exchanges. And then you win that really shitty lottery, right? Where we all might trust certain counterparties or have people that we're faithful in, or, that we believe in. And then look what happened, right? The most popular person, if not, no, one of the most popular people in this market, the one who kind of was like a face of this market, ended up being one of the biggest con artists, I think. Clearly, everything was bullshit. So anyway, if you use Phemex, this is just a little bit more to, I guess, comfort any concerns you might have. Right. And all exchanges, I think, moving forward should do a lot more than this personally. But that's my opinion. Anyway, does anyone have any questions before we get started about how that works, about anything? Because I'm just going to get right into it otherwise. I'll give the chat a second to catch up. Okay. Anyway, so here's what I'm thinking right now. So we'll take a look at BTC. The thing that stands out to me right now is, market's clearly been in a really tight range. It's only for the first time broken down outside of that range, right? So it's like a 9-day long range, a composite, right? I think between 16,400 and 16,900, where bulk of the activity and bulk of the volume was traded, where value accrued. So we broke down outside of that. We had a multi-day inside day break. It might not have been multi-day. If you look at the last couple of days, I mean, it kind of looks like it was. Like if we look at up until yesterday rather. So you have one inside day. Yeah, no, it wasn't. You had one inside day here. The break outside of that, another inside day. So just a ton of compression though. So a ton of compression, right? Break to the downside. No major expansion yet. Open interest continuously rising while all this is happening. So whether or not this open interest is, majority aggressive longs or aggressive shorts remains to be seen. There's obviously a lot of risk that's being added into the market right now. So whether that's hedges, whether those are outright directional plays to the downside or to the upside. So a move outside of this range. So either a move, I think, that takes us from here back within this range or below the lows, I think is going to lead to a much more significant move. Now, here's my opinion on DCG and Genesis and all of that. I don't have really strong opinion, and I'm not really necessarily in the know with what is going on, how investors are affected, and how that whole process takes place if they go through bankruptcy and yada, yada, yada. All I'll say is that any positive news, right? So any positive news from Genesis or DCG or, Barry coming online for the first time and, who knows how long at this point, since I think the whole FTX saga began, any positive news from him, I think, catches the market on its heels. So again, looks like there's a significant amount of risk that's added, right? If we're looking at the derivative market. And there's also a significant amount of spot selling that's taken place, both aggressively and passively. So I think more significantly passively, because there's been quite a significant spot CVD divergence. And prices obviously have been melting down as CVD's been moving up. So if we look at right here, if you just look at these CVDs, the blue CVD is Coinbase. So notice how blue is moving up. Binance is yellow, moving down. Then you have Phemex moving up. Both of them moving up more aggressively over here against Binance, obviously. But as they're moving up, having no real impact on price whatsoever. I mean, if you look at just from left to right from this low point, so CVD, blue is Coinbase, green is Phemex. As prices, and I'm more inclined to look at Coinbase and Binance, but I have Phemex separated also. But price has been continuously moving lower, melting lower, and that spot CVD is moving up. So if anything, there's a good amount of absorption that's taking place by limit on part of limit sellers. So there are likely derivative short positions open. Excuse me. I'm sucking on a Halls right now for my throat. And there's also you could expect that after a move of this magnitude, you have a bunch of sideline capital. So my point is, if we have any kind of positive development, I'm not saying that, that's more likely than the opposite, but I think that the market's going to be surprised. Until then, I think it's really important to just keep your head down. And I can't stress this enough. And again, similar point that I was trying to make when I was talking about, again, being partners with Phemex, trusting a counterparty, but at the end of the day, you still have to make sure that your head is never on the chopping block. And right now, in terms of positioning, the same can be said. So I do think, and I'll go to the other chart in a second. Yeah, I do think that this is like the prototypical perfect example of bottom sentiment. And, not all of them are going to be created equal in terms of what happens at bottoms, but it's all, all hell breaks loose. So by all means, this is kind of exactly what you want. But the problem is in this specific situation, right? Because they're not all created equally. Excuse me. I've gone ahead and tried to chipmunk this Halls by putting it in my cheek, but obviously it's fucking up my speech. But in this particular situation, if there's no solution, I think that the outcome is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to see somewhere in the realm of $9 billion worth of selling pressure coming into the market. All right. So I think it's around 600,000 Bitcoin or something like that. And, that's just Bitcoin. So that is a very significant amount. Now, obviously, they're not going to just hit the market sell button. They would want to do that in the most tactful manner possible. But if the market is privy to that, the market's not going to be as warm and welcoming to that kind of flow. So, if this is the case, that this situation sort of plays out as worst case scenario, then I think we have to zoom out and start looking back at, the beginning of this major move up, right? I mean, this is the gap that we've been talking about below prior all-time highs and the major, next major area of participation, which is down in that sort of like 10 to 12K region. And I can't see a reason why, while that selling pressure is coming into the market, why anyone would really step in the way of that. I mean, right now, crypto is not in the best position, as far as like looking like an attractive asset class, looking like something that you want to, kind of knife catch in. And if anything, it wouldn't make sense for anyone who had any level of intelligence to step in the way of that selling until it was finished, until the market found a bottom, right? Or at least until that sell pressure had been absorbed by the market or fully reflected in the market. And I don't think you could say right now that's priced in by any means. $9 billion or 600,000 BTC, that's a material amount of capital. And, that's up where that, of course, has been reflected in prices over time. We've seen that value in terms of volume be absorbed by the market over long periods of time to the upside and to the downside, but never in this specific situation, or rather in this, never has it been like this, where, it's kind of like, again, everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop and to see how this situation resolves itself. But as I said earlier, I am not an authority on this. I'm just trying to, keep my ear to the ground and listen to people that are smarter than myself and sort of in the know. And if I find out anything, I obviously will try as best as possible to convey and communicate that information. A couple other things, and then we'll just get to the levels that I'm looking at, and I'll take questions. Crypto is not popular right now. And listen, markets don't stay in favor when they're bottoming. That's just this is like the opposite of excess, as I said yesterday. That's all it is. Like, think of the emotions that you had on the way up, and these are the diametric opposites, right? Heaven and hell. All right. When you're thinking of bottoms in advance, you just think about them in terms of price. You just think, okay, price is going to go down a lot, whatever, it'll be cool. And you forget that as it's going down, right, that things are absolutely falling apart and people are losing their minds. So a major component of being able to operate successfully in markets is clearly your psychological state. And that should be very obvious at this point, because the entire timeline has been unbearable, honestly, I will say. It makes me want to mute CT accounts and crypto accounts and really just step off of Twitter, because it's just a constant feedback loop of negativity. Mark Cuban unfriended anyone that was crypto related. Obviously this guy he was new. He was trying to jump on the bandwagon and take advantage of the moment, and clearly didn't have like long-term belief. Like, if anyone's coming, you could assume that if anyone is coming into this market later, obviously they had less belief than people that had gotten in earlier. That's just like the way things work anyway. So it's no surprise that he didn't really have the intestinal fortitude to, tough it out. Other news, I think this is interesting. The whole idea of never delivering and talking about things that are to come. And I think that's a good thing. And Cardano is someone that's notorious for that. And I think it has come out that they're going to be developing a privacy blockchain and a token around that. So, there's a loyal fan base for Cardano and ADA. And I think that if they are creating something new like that, you're going to see it. You're going to see a bid translate there as well. Other news before we get into price. It's not going to be on here. Is it on here? No. Is coin in the S&P 500? I couldn't even tell you, honestly. I don't know most of the components besides the top 10. Apple is like 7% of the index, but coin right now, not looking too good. So where is the coin chart? Coin made new lows today. All-time low, right? It's just all-time low after all-time. Yeah, it's not necessarily all-time low after all-time low because we're going back to May, but not looking good, right? GBTC not looking good, obviously. Coin not looking good, but this shouldn't be any surprise, right? You shouldn't like look at the charts right now and panic that they're going down. Nothing is in favor, and clearly this is, a market that is experiencing a ton of stress. All right, before I get into BTC, and I've been trading the NASDAQ this morning, so I've been trading both quite well. I closed out a BTC short. I posted that in the Discord earlier. The Discord is completely public, free, open to access if anyone's interested. I plan on getting around to sharing my brokerage statements in there and my crypto trades as well. I only realized, and I mentioned this in the Discord, I was trying to figure out a way to, because I use Edgewonk for crypto trading, and I was trying to figure out a way to integrate my Edge Clear, which is my brokerage, with Edgewonk, figuring out how to convert the Excel file to a file that could be uploaded onto Edgewonk, and then just found out last week that Edge Clear actually has their own built-in performance graphs and all that. So I had just gone back to trading futures, and this is a fairly new platform to me. So in the next month, I will go ahead and start posting in that channel daily trades, performance, stuff that actually probably won't look that exciting because it's kind of just it's a bunch of trades that are itemized. Anyway, questions, and then we'll get into it. I think I covered everything I wanted to get out of the way in the beginning. DOM software that I'm using here. This is Quant Tower. And then let's just change the screen real quick. I want to see how much of a lag. So I have the stream on another. There we go. Quant Tower, and then this is Edge Clear. This is kind of off screen. Hold on. We'll stay on TradingView. FYI, for anyone who is interested, and I have no affiliation with them, but TradingView is doing their Black Friday sale, so I think it's like 60% off. So make sure you take advantage of that. Most of these platforms, by the way, if you go to cancel them, like if you go to cancel TradingView, they'll offer you a 50% discount anyway. So don't say anything about that. But all right, so looking at BTC and looking at the NQ, I'm sure that most people are here for crypto. I've gotten back to trading legacy. I started trading the ES again, started trading the NQ again, kind of just trying to find my rhythm in both of those instruments. But looking at BTC first, as I mentioned, a bunch of open interest built up. I'm not going to say with a ton of certainty like, oh, it's a bunch of short open interest. We have a massive short squeeze ahead of us. I'm trading level to level. I'm looking at open interest thinking, well, if we break outside of this range majorly or towards an extreme, someone's going to be on the wrong side clearly, right? To the tune of a significant amount. As far as BTC, I ended up shorting the break back within today's value and back below the point of control. I closed it out at this low right around 15. I think when I closed it out, it might have been around 15.95. Just looked like it was slowing down a little too much for me. Tape's been kind of slow. As far as local levels go, there's really only two things that I'm focused on. So let me scale this. I'm focused on this low. So our major pivot within this range. So we're looking at, now over 10, 11, 12 days in this range. So we haven't returned to that yet. So a potential area where sellers could get really offside and we could see a, significant amount of participation come in. Possible breakdown, right? Or possible setup where shorts get offside and we have some type of swing failure there. Honestly, if this comes to this low because it's on, negative news or some kind of update that's negative by DCG or Genesis or Bowery, if anything more comes to light and it's not good, a break of this low is probably a breakdown, right? A break of this low is probably a breakout to the downside and more than likely has significant follow through. So keep that in mind, right? I wouldn't necessarily tune the news out and just trade the chart, because it is going to be important to understand what is happening as we're breaking into that low. If that is, looks like it would be the next logical area for price to go. And then the next area that I'm looking at is back within this multi-day composite, right? I mean, you can see this is clearly the first time where the market has found acceptance outside of this composite. So this larger gray box is the last 9-day composite. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That was where we spent most of our time, where most of the value had accrued. And this is the first real day that we could say there's been acceptance outside of that region. So first acceptance outside of a multi-day range like this, multi-day value, break from balance, usually the first leg you're not going to fade. And that might mean the first leg that we had right here, right? But you could see that the underside of this structure has been giving us trouble. So having trouble getting accepted back in right here. And this is the portion of the structure where we've seen a pretty sharp divergence in spot CVD. So price is obviously capped off at the underside of this SR flip. And if we look at the spot CVD for this structure, note Coinbase, Phemex, and Binance is still selling. So Binance sell flow is being reflected successfully in the market. We haven't made new lows the same way the CVD has, but it's clear that sellers are in control. So I don't want to overthink this. I don't want to long this, assuming that it's a deviation outside of this range. I think that the longer that we move left to right, the more credibility you have to assign to any kind of break. Realized vol, implied vol, daily ranges, ATR, all dropping in the structure. So any kind of major compression usually leads to expansion. I don't consider this necessarily expansion, for what I would assume we're going to get. But it doesn't mean that a break outside of here, it doesn't mean that because of that, because it looks like very clear acceptance, that we can't come back within this range and slingshot upward. And I think that ultimately, if we're going to reclaim a level, you can see that most of the candle body is down here. The daily open is right here. So we don't really have much of a wick to the upside. Here's your daily open, right? Here's the daily open line. Really no wick. If we get back above that daily open, clearly on the daily, that'll look like we rejected the lows. And then we're accepted back within sort of a multi-day range. I think that if we're back above, these highs even, so weekly open, daily open, sort of 16.3, 16.4 region, stay safe, right? Not a precise level, but a sort of a zone for this interaction to, for you to observe this and observe what, here we had absorption previously. So if we see that the market is able to come back there and the seller doesn't show up, then I think that you likely get something where this is a quick move to this naked point of control. So right around 16.6, and then possibly higher, right? If we've had a, significant, 1-day structure print under here, looks like it's acceptance, bunch of volume done under here, and then we're back within this range, then I'm just going to start trading it like the range again, right? Low to high, midpoints, as being the sort of next sticky areas, or rather the acceptance back within the low. The next sticky area would be around the midpoint, which is around the, naked point of control. And then the highs right around 16.9. And the, so this is the volume profile composite, but I think I posted it earlier. Let me just double check. This is in the Discord. 1 second. Daily plan. Here we go. So the composite 16.937. So the TPO. So this is something that I posted in the Discord. Nothing special, just some levels for the day. So the TPO composite is where you would expect it to be. I mean, if you look at this structure, right, how it's printed, here's your volume profile composite, value area high. Here's the value area low. But the TPO composite starts here, and the highs are up here. And you can see, it makes sense. All the swing points are a little bit lower a little bit lower than where your volume profile composite would have been. So something like 16.4 slingshotting up to this naked point of control and possibly up to around the 17K region. So I'm not interested in getting involved right here. Unless, so again, I closed out a short right here from the high up here. So the only trades that I would take, I'd probably chase. So after, and it's going to sound funny because I just said I'm not interested in getting involved here. But let's say we start breaking down midstream. If we start accepting below this low, I anticipate that we're going to have that break towards the lows of this entire structure. So 15.58, 15.6 region. And I would chase that. And then the other setup is obviously, like I said, for back above sort of the weekly open, there's a bunch of confluence. So, weekly open, daily open, 16.3, 16.4 value area low of this composite. So you got three different, pieces of evidence that would be satisfied at that point, or they're not pieces of evidence because it's not like the weekly open is necessarily as significant as the fact that buyers are showing up again, right? Instead of sellers knocking us back down. So acceptance back above here, clean break below these lows. I would chase that honestly. And then, next major area to start really paying attention would be down at that 15.588, 15.6 region. So, the exciting thing is that we're not going to stay up here forever. We're not going to stay this tight forever, I should say. Things are getting very compressed. I ended up buying a straddle on ETH. And that was for the assumption that things were so compressed and we're going to have some kind of significant break in the next couple of weeks. So that expiry is on December 2nd. This all makes sense for BTC? So now the trouble is, it's funny. I still have not deposited everything back to exchanges, right? So obviously the coast is not completely clear yet. I'm trading on exchanges again that I trust, right? But I'm hedged on one exchange. I'm hedged on, I'm in synthetic USD on one exchange. I have my scalp account on another exchange. I've always had, multiple accounts, right? This is no surprise, right? That's partners with Phemex, but I've always had multiple accounts along with Phemex. But the drawback is that I can't trade the full size that I normally would trade. And that's not that big of a deal. Amongst other things that are going on right now, I don't think that is like the most important concern. Liquidity has dropped significantly, so trading the same size would be really fucking stupid. But I just have to be mindful of that because I am technically using more leverage to even represent off-exchange amounts. So if you see me now, I just clicked 5 BTC, and that is, right around 80K. And that is like a tenth of, what I might normally be trading. All right, so I think the chat, it is a very depressed market right now. All right, so as far as the NQ, some levels that I'm looking at, and this is hold on, let me just scale this right. So not too different from BTC right now. So we're drifting lower. Dollar obviously still strong. So if you look at the last few days, look at the dollar, look at yields, look at risk in relation to those, not necessarily looking at positive either, right? The ES and the NQ. So local levels that I'm looking at the low, right? So yesterday's low, or not yesterday's low, the low of this structure. So we're going back to the 17th. That was Thursday. And then we're back within yesterday's low, but I'm not necessarily interested in chasing any kind of trade. I'd rather see us trading back within the opening range. So right now sellers are doing a pretty good job of pushing us lower, and it hasn't helped that, yields are pushing up today and risk as a whole is getting kind of an ass kicking. Not as bad as it has been, but not exactly jumping off the screen saying to get long. This morning, so here, this green box is, and I could go on Edge Clear right now, but I know it's probably easier for some people to just look at TradingView. This green box was our 30-minute opening range. So I'll trade the 30-second opening range, the 30-minute opening range, and then I'll keep an eye on. So whether or not, some people might use the 30-minute or the 1 hour for the initial balance. But this is based on regular trading hours. So this is after the cash session opens. This is when, NYSE opens. This is during the New York session, right at 9:30. So the 30 minutes after, this is our range. You can see that we came back, retested it, attempted to make new lows, broke yesterday's lows, and now we're kind of flirting back with that area again. I would honestly rather see that we're able to get back within that range. There might be another short set up here. It looks like buyers are starting to lift this, right? So if you look this morning, NQ around these lows, CVD started to really change direction. So we started to see buyers start to get much more aggressive. But it hasn't necessarily translated to as much movement in price as you would expect. So there is still a good amount of stickiness above. This is, this is a lot cheaper to trade than BTC. And it's a lot more liquid. So I will, for anyone who's tuning into the stream now or is tuning in during this stream and hasn't been on previous streams, I've gone back to trading legacy. And I think it's warranted, honestly. Especially, I found that the NQ trades very technically, almost the way that, Bitcoin trades. Obviously, you're trading against much deeper level of talent in terms of participants, I should say sophistication. But it is absolutely tradable if you could take some of the concepts, if you're a technical trader, if you're a flow trader coming from crypto. Again, most of it boiling down, or a lot of it boiling down to having proper risk management and executing properly. But it is something that I've found to be an easy transition, although it hasn't been easy when I've tried to trade both at the same time. So it's very difficult to try to manage multiple markets. And that's something that, I have learned in the last week or 2 weeks, I think at this point, starting off really strong and then trying to trade both markets, sort of keep an eye on everything. And then one suffering. So either my crypto trade suffering or, I'm giving back some of the money that I made in the morning later in the day. Do you have any questions right now? Because I think the chat is a little lagged. Let me just see where it is that we're on when I have this open. Okay, so I see I have top left portion of I have my top right screen on, and then I have my range chart for lower time frames. So back above VWAP, back in that opening range, honestly, it's kind of marching back up now. I don't want to be the first to just buy the VWAP retest. Just looking at my iPad right now for the comments. Dom software, like I said earlier, is Quant Tower, and this is Edge Clear, or this is Edge Pro X, excuse me. Straddle's long vol, so I was, or I am, excuse me. It was the 1050 ETH put and the 14 100 ETH call. So long both, expecting some kind of expansion, but directionally agnostic. Even though I was kind of expecting it to be down. I don't think, I wouldn't really trust what I see on Twitter about Sailor's liquidation. There's a whole lot of complexity to that I can't really touch on. I can tell you that it's not until you get down to like low four, from the people that I trust, there's no concerns until you get down to like low 4 digits. So if we're there, we're in trouble anyway. Just to keep in mind, and I think that this is not something that like you want to lean on, where you should, accept this and think, it's okay. By all means, if you could avoid this, you're way better off, clearly, and it goes without saying. So from high to low, 85% last cycle. Where we are currently, we're looking at around 77%. So it's not to say that this isn't terrible, but I think that it helps put in perspective where you sit in terms of pain, right? Or how, depressed the market is compared to just, it's simple, to where it previously was. So meaning people have been through this before and it's actually gotten worse, right? So this is really bad because the previous times that this happened, let me clarify that statement. If any, you might be able to spin that in a positive light, right? Okay, we're almost down to what have been previous cycle drawdowns, and people have dealt with this before, and it's paid off, and it's no guarantee of future results, but people have been at these levels before in terms of the market being this depressed and this drawn down. The difference is context, obviously, always, right? So previously at 3K, at the revisit in March 2020, different context, right? At 3K in 2018, 3 to 4K, there was no looming overhead, possibility of 9 billion, maybe it existed somewhere, but it was never public, right? There was no Genesis, there was no DCG bankruptcy that was kind of hanging over us, right? That we were, aware of and yet uncertain about what the outcome might be. So that's a big difference, right? Because we're already at a very illiquid part of the cycle, and it is possible, again, that there's a lot more selling to come. But in terms of drawdown, I guess the point is, like, we've been here before, and maybe not everyone has. I have. Obviously, each cycle is going to feel different. It's going to be different, but we're not there yet in terms of percentage terms. I don't know if that's supposed to be any consolation, but it made sense in my head when I said it. Where do you buy options? Well, there's a couple exchanges you could trade options. There is, I think most exchanges, like Phemex is going to be listing options. Deribit has options. Bybit now has options. Deribit has the most liquid options, but Deribit has really strict KYC. The other exchanges don't. So just to touch on this. So I'm just looking at the pad real quick to see where you guys can see where I'm high. Okay. VWAP is a pretty good area to treat sort of like dynamic support and resistance. Now, obviously, it depends on, what kind of move we put in to approach it. First time retest for a couple ticks versus it actually acting like a major support or resistance. Those are two different things. But there's many cases when the market reverses on the day and we find ourselves back above VWAP, back above where a significant amount of the risk was transacted. And it's a good platform to either get long or short off of. I'm using this as an example because we reclaimed VWAP, but I mentioned that I didn't want to buy this VWAP because there's obviously a couple other things that stand out as well, other than just reclaiming VWAP. You know, we're back at that opening range. So there's a good amount of confluence between the opening range low VWAP and then yesterday's value. So I forgot to mention that. So yesterday's value is slightly higher. It's right around 11,645. So I'd honestly rather see that, you know, of course, it'd be a good sign of strength if we're back above VWAP and back within the opening range. But that's today in isolation, right? In terms of the broader context, the last 2 days, the composite value of the NQ is slightly higher. So the low of it rather. So again, sort of 11,630, 11,640 region, which is just a tad higher than where we currently are. So you can see it on this. So I'll combine these. And now, just to draw that line. So now this is your composite value area low of the last 2 sessions right here. So yeah, we have the opening range low right here. Yeah, we were flirting around VWAP. Now we're back below it. But if we were able to reclaim the last 2 days value, then I think I would be more eager to get long for a revisit back to today's highs, or at least back to today's point of control. Transacting a good amount of volume down here right now, but sellers are still, I mean, it appears to me that sellers are still in control. Again, if you look at CVD, we've had pretty counter trend move in terms of price and CVD. So for the last few hours, so last couple hours. So on, let's see, can you see it right now? Yes, you can. Okay, I'm looking at, because I know my screen is not set up exactly. So the ladder's right here. To the left of it, you only see a portion of this range chart that I have. It actually goes further to the left. But you could see the CVD going against price right here. So on this chart, top left, as the NQ is moving down, you see that the CVD is beginning to trade against that trend. So there's obviously still a good amount of absorption. And as we've traded back to this VWAP, you know, we're beginning to see failure there again. Across the board, like I said earlier, before I started, before I changed the screen, you know, risk doesn't necessarily look like it's in the strongest position. The dollar's still moving up, yield's still moving up, looking at the 2 and the 10. And then bigger picture, like if we zoom out, if we look at the NQ, if we look at the ES, I'll take some of this stuff off just to give you a clean chart. Now, hopefully you guys have this on HD, because otherwise it's tough to see with this four screen setup. All right, so weekly. So weekly high and composite, just to show you. Close and composite, but looking at the composite where most of the value was done, where most of the volume was done, and now going back out, we're kind of flirting around that level right now. So if this continues to break down, being that it is looking weak now, this is a decent SR flip, but if this is continuing to press lower, right, we're not able to retake any of these previous days, get back into prior day value, then honestly, the next area that I'm looking towards is this imbalance down here. So you have singles that are right around, this is right around the, we'll zoom out, 11,271 down to 10,900 level. Now, crypto and legacy haven't been necessarily correlated, but I think that if legacy puked lower, I don't think that crypto remains strong in the face of that. Make sense? But again, just keep in mind, like what happens this week might not necessarily be that significant because it's going to be light, right? Holiday week. Hours are going to be a little wonky towards Thursday and Friday as far as futures hours or the exchange hours. Probably just going to get short some contracts here. Invalidation back above VWAP. If we're able to base out above there. Actually, I only have short 4 contracts now. This is the MNQ, so this is the mini because I'm trying to get comfortable trading these again, and I think that requires kind of like dipping toes back in and trading the mini. But I want to add to this if we come back up to VWAP, so I'll keep an eye on that. Now, the idea would be looking for some kind of second failure up here to add. Whereas if we start basing out above here, then we'll change positioning. Any questions, guys? Probably will wrap it up if there's no questions. Oh, I said mini. My bad, dude. Micros. Yes. MNQ. You know, originally I didn't want to trade the micros and just wanted to go right back to trading the ES and the NQ because the fee to profit ratio it's not as attractive, right? It's, you know, you don't get a deal by going down to the micros in terms of fees. So if you were to trade like the same notional value in micros as if you're like trading micro E-mini versus just the E-mini, it's more expensive from a fee standpoint. But it's, you know, like talking to Dan, you said this, it's like, it's so stupid in terms of, it's negligible unless you're literally scalping for just small ticks. Then it would be an issue. But the benefit of micros is it allows you to scale into positions. I think a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit more advantageous to do that, to spread that order out if you're swinging and looking to again just break things up. I mean, especially for me right now, getting back into it. You know, the trading the ES for the E-mini, being wrong for the full amount is just, it's never always, you know, it's never attractive to be wrong for the full amount if you're just coming back into something. So breaking up the risk makes sense. All right, guys, I'll probably wrap it up. I'll leave this short open, see if I could get a throwback, or we just continue. We just start moving down now. Looks like we're just going to move down. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you signed up to Phemex with the link provided, or if you just signed up, either way, it doesn't matter. Take advantage of that proof of reserves portal. And what I would say is, when I say take advantage of it, it sounds funny because it's like, what can you do with it? Keep an eye on it. Like if you're on an exchange and now you have access to the, and I don't care if they're partners or not, right? If you're on an exchange right now and you have access to the proof of reserves, dedicate some of your screen space to that, right? You know, you spend a good amount of time tracking prices, tracking indicators, tracking a bunch of things. What is the hurt in tracking how the proof of reserves change, if they do change, right? If you start to see them drop, I mean, if there's any kind of funny business taking place, like it doesn't hurt to be cautious. You know, obviously it didn't hurt for people to sound the alarms sooner than most people did for FTX. And I would say to continue to be like this moving forward. At least, you know, I think what we need to do is we need to get like listen, the saying is time heals all wounds. I think we need to get like a month away from this because it's just way too fresh, right? The wound is still fresh. Everyone is still waiting for, again, the other shoe to drop. And for good reason, right? We're not sure how this DCG Genesis thing is going to resolve itself. But I think this will pass, right? We'll be past this. As a reminder, though, it's like you don't have to just focus on crypto. I mean, there are other markets that you could focus on and try to develop yourself in. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button and leave a comment below if you found any of this helpful or if you wanted me to touch on things in future streams. Until next time.